Like, share and subscribe because it is free.
The Galactic Concord had cataloged over 4,000 sentient species across the stars. Not one had ever needed a knife. When the observation vessel Varellan's gaze descended silently over Earth, it wasn't expecting hostility. It wasn't expecting much of anything, really. Just another pre-FTL planet, isolated, probably frightened, maybe curious. The species, humans, had shown signs of atomic development and orbital capability. The Concord's mission was simple: assess the level of technological danger, initiate first diplomatic contact if safe, or place the species under soft quarantine. The humans had already detected the vessel. They didn't fire. Instead, they invited the Concord's research team to a neutral multinational site designated by the local governance group, the United Nations. A secure perimeter, no weapons, no technology. The aliens accepted. What followed was a formal cultural demonstration. It began harmlessly. Humans displayed paintings, tools, space capsules. They explained languages, history, survival against nature. The Concord team, composed of 6 species, mostly avian and cephalopodic in physiology, logged the artifacts with quiet interest. Then a human stepped forward. Female, identified herself as Lieutenant Sarah Cade. She wore a uniform and brought only one item, a black, mat-sheathed instrument, 30 centimeters long. "This," she said, pulling it out with a smooth motion, "is a combat knife." The blade glinted under the lights. It was plain. No moving parts. No emitters. No power source. Just sharpened steel. The Concord delegates tilted their heads, unsure. "What is its function?" One of them asked through a translator sphere. Cade held it with familiarity. "It's a survival tool. Cuts wood, cord, food. Also for defense. Offense if needed." She stepped to the demonstration table and began slicing through a thick rope with fluid ease. The blade bit clean. Then she cut through leather, hard synthetic plastic, even chipped a piece from a small wooden log. "This metal?" An Eurakian observer asked, blinking rapidly. "No energy? No directive force. Just carbon steel," Cade replied. "Take some strength, but the advantage is it's silent. Needs no charge. Can't be traced." The room stilled. One delegate whispered, "Primitive." Cade heard it, smiled. "A single human trained with this can kill in close quarters. Silent infiltration. No emissions to detect. Can be concealed here." She tapped her boot. "Or here." She pulled a second, smaller blade from the lining of her uniform. The Kazarn diplomat took a step back. "Wait. These tools are common. Standard issue, yes. But you'll find variations across civilian, tribal, historical, and professional levels. We've made billions of these in thousands of styles." Another delegate, the Thalkren biostrategist, scanned the object. "Your civilization moved beyond such blunt tools, surely?" "Not exactly," Cade said, eyes steady. "We still train with them. In some units, it's a last resort. In others, it's the first choice. It depends on the objective." She paused. "You wanted a demonstration of how we survive. This knife is the answer. We adapt. This doesn't jam. It doesn't need a satellite. It just works. Rain, fire, dirt, it cuts." A small insectoid alien, the ZYXDI envoy, made a stuttering noise. "How does a being neutralize an enemy with this?" Cade didn't flinch. "Target the neck, or the lower abdomen, between the ribs. Quietly, up close. No dramatics, no boasting. Just facts." The room was silent. One of the Concord members stepped away and whispered into a comm bead. Another tapped on a hollow pad with visible urgency. Cade continued. "In our past, we had entire units trained to operate only with blades. No guns, no noise. Just patience and a good edge. Some still do." "You value this tool?" the avian diplomat asked. Cade nodded. "We value what it represents. Precision, simplicity, resilience." The demonstration ended without applause. That night, aboard the Varellan's gaze, the Concord delegates reviewed the footage. Each movement, each word dissected, The knife's properties, chemical composition, and demonstrated uses were analyzed. The Concord had rules. Categories of planetary threat. This didn't fit any of them. The Xarn delegate, overseeing threat analysis, initiated an emergency classification request. We must elevate Earth's rating. Immediately, this is a Class 9 weapon. Class 9, another objected. That's for antimatter detonators, black hole harvesters. You're thinking in energy terms, the Xarn said. This is worse. This is undetectable lethality. One individual. No power required. It's an evolutionary weapon. Biological alignment with functional death delivery. The Thalkren added, they can make these anywhere. Out of scrap, metal, even bone. A silence fell. They train their young with knives, someone whispered. They pass them down like tradition. The ZYXDI's neurospindle fluttered. No wonder they survive in hostile climates. No wonder they endured planetary wars. If one knife equals one kill and they've made billions of potential single-unit assassins, the Xarn confirmed. And that's just what they showed us. The Council didn't wait. A message was sent through the core relays. Quarantine level escalation. Earth. Pre-contact halt. Species under review. Then came the designation. Item. Human combat knife. Status. Unregistered weapon of mass destruction. The Concord internal systems updated automatically. Red tag. Prohibited contact. All research vessels near Sol were ordered to retreat beyond sensor range. No public explanation was given. No sanction announced. Just a quiet consensus across 4,000 species. Leave Earth alone. Back on the surface, Lieutenant Cade cleaned the blade with a rag. She hadn't been told what the Concord decided. She didn't need to be. She smiled anyway. In less than 6 standard cycles, the footage of the knife demonstration had been viewed by every intelligent cell within the galactic Concord. The panic started quietly. A ripple among analysts. A sudden spike in interspecies message traffic. Then, a formal emergency convening of the Concord Assembly on Prime World Corellis, a planet that hadn't hosted such a gathering in over 2,000 years. Representatives from a major species filled the orbital chamber. They watched the unedited human footage projected in high resolution. Lieutenant Sarah Cade, her blade, her words. By the end of the recording, half the chamber sat motionless. The other half argued in hushed, nervous tones. What's more dangerous? The Thalkren asked, adjusting its neural fins, the tool of the attitude. They train for this, the Xarn ambassador replied. They speak of survival not as desperation, but as skill. The footage was paused on Cade's final statement. It just works. The implication was clear. No power grid, no planetary support, just steel, muscle, and intention. The Security Council ordered a full dissection of the blade's properties, material scans, structural stress tests, replication simulations. Within hours, every analyst agreed. The knife itself was not extraordinary. It was what the humans did with it. That's when the historical dive began. The Concord's data excavators accessed Earth's public records. What they found rewrote everything the galaxy believed about intelligent warfare. It wasn't just knives. It was how humans used them. Their species had documented thousands of years of close combat methodologies. Tribes that passed blades from generation to generation. Warriors who trained for years to fight in silence. Military organizations that sent entire units behind enemy lines with nothing but edge weapons and determination. The Xarn intelligence minister discovered footage of humans in camouflage crawling through mud, remaining motionless for hours, approaching targets without a single technological aid. Another analyst, assigned to deep cultural context, found recordings of prison inmates crafting blades from plastic, toothbrushes, glass, anything with an edge. And not just crafting, but killing with them. The scariest part wasn't the weapon. It was the psychology. Humans normalize proximity death, the Thalkren biostrategist said. They don't just accept it. They train for it. Knife range is smell range. It's eye contact range. The council fell silent. One of the elder races, the Illics, requested clarification. You mean they override the biological revulsion for close-quarters killing? The Khazar nodded grimly. Yes, repeatedly, culturally, recreationally. Thousands of archived human films, books, and virtual simulations confirmed the trend. Knife combat wasn't just a contingency. It was romanticized, glorified, taught. From entertainment to training manuals, humanity embraced blade warfare with an intensity bordering on the spiritual. One analysis file was highlighted and disseminated among the assembly. It contained a translated quote from a human soldier. The knife doesn't run out of bullets. It doesn't jam. It's the weapon that reminds you you're alive. The room sat in stunned silence. Then came the incident reports, compiled and cross-referenced across Earth's recent wars. Units surviving with no supply chain. Individuals surviving in jungles, deserts, cities, killing, evading, escaping, with only a blade and instinct. Entire enemy platoons neutralized. Urban targets eliminated in silence. One case stood out. A single human operative who survived 36 days behind enemy lines, confirmed to have eliminated 14 opponents, using a handmade blade fashioned from scrap metal. The Concord's threat index began recalibrating. A new danger metric was proposed, biological lethal adaptability. Humans ranked first. Next came the psychological fallout. Several Concord species, those evolved in peace, those unfamiliar with physical combat, began reporting symptoms of anxiety, sleep disruption, and paranoia. Some developed phobias of sharp objects. One race proposed a ban on all pointed tools aboard their vessels. The phrase knife-level threat entered Concord lexicon as shorthand for unpredictable lethal potential. The Security Council drafted a containment directive. Earth was to be classified as a red-level threat species. No member race was permitted to initiate contact, trade, or observation without high authority clearance. All civilian knowledge of Earth was to be restricted. Concord outreach teams were reassigned to more stable planets. The observation satellites orbiting Earth were ordered to minimize transmissions and adopt silent mode protocols. Still, the debate raged behind closed doors. One camp argued that the humans were simply survivors, dangerous only if provoked. The opposing side wasn't so optimistic. If they can do this with a knife, the Urakian envoy whispered, what can they do with their real weapons? The assembly's head archivist raised a chilling question. What if a knife was never meant to be impressive? What if it was the safest thing they could show us? That question shut down the debate. Final vote, 921 in favor, 77 abstentions, 2 against. Earth declared off-limits. In the aftermath, alien civilizations began adjusting their training protocols. Military academies added human unpredictability modules. Espionage branches added human psychology as a special track. Threat simulation AIs were updated with blade-based modeling, coded with parameters labeled CADE scenario. Some species built entire facilities to test close-quarters defense. Few succeeded. Many couldn't comprehend fighting without distance, without energy weapons, without drones. They couldn't think like humans, because humans weren't just warriors. They were problem solvers. When tools failed, they made new ones. When machines died, they adapted. When cornered, they didn't surrender. They sharpened something. The Ilix ambassador made a final, haunting statement during the post-vote debrief. Every other species moved past the knife because it was crude. But humans brought it with them, all the way to the stars. The quote circulated for cycles. It reached the border fleets stationed near Sol. It reached the archivists on distant moons. It reached the rebellious fringe species, who began whispering about the humans in a different tone, not with contempt, but with fear and fascination. And across the dark void between stars, the Earth remained silent. No message, no reply, just a world spinning quietly, full of species who smiled while sharpening edges. The silence from Earth unnerved them more than any declaration of war ever could. Most newly discovered species responded with panic, curiosity, or supplication. Humanity did none of these. The Terrans didn't probe back, didn't send transmissions, didn't even react. They just went quiet, as if watching, waiting, on the edge of Concord space. Paranoia spread faster than logic. Among the outer colonies, rumors exploded. A human had supposedly infiltrated a weapons lab. A human fleet had been spotted beyond the Null Corridor. An asteroid station had mysteriously gone dark after analyzing Terran data. None of it was confirmed. None of it was denied. Every species interpreted the silence differently. To the Xarn, it meant calculated patience. To the Thalkren, it meant psychological warfare. To the insectoids UYXDI, it was a cultural death threat, an expression of readiness to strike without warning. In panic, border worlds began drafting their own countermeasures. But what exactly were they defending against? They had seen a knife. That's all. No orbital railguns, no gravity mines, no black hole warheads, just sharpened metal, and a woman who used it like she was born with it in her hand. The knife had become a symbol, a fear, a myth. In Concord simulations, scenarios involving human infiltration had overtaken all others in probability and kill success. Training exercises now included unknown close-range variables, nicknamed the Blade Protocol. Soon, Concord Black Ops teams tried replicating human tactics. The failure rate was catastrophic. In one simulation, a Thalkren commando team entered a tight combat, maze-equipped only with analog tools. They lasted 90 seconds before total failure. Another team was trained for weeks to ignore pain and embrace silence. They broke down on day 3. No matter the effort, no other species could simulate the instinct to fight dirty. Humans didn't just strike, they anticipated. They broke patterns. They used their environment. They used distraction. Some even injured themselves just to set up a kill. One senior Concord strategist finally said aloud, "Humans weaponized unpredictability." And the problem wasn't isolated to combat. It infected philosophy, strategy, negotiation. It was a mindset. Where most species sought balance, humans sought advantage. Where others saw control, humans embraced chaos. And when everyone else surrendered, humans stood up and reached for something sharp. Across the void, a rogue broadcast slipped into Concord channels. Undetected for hours. Untraceable. The voice spoke only once. "You feared a blade, but we've always been the weapon." No trace. No origin. Just a voice. Calm. Human. Panic swept through the intelligence branches. Dozens of factions accused each other of leaks. Some claimed the humans had hacked Concord channels. Others said it was internal sabotage. But deep down, every species suspected the truth. The humans had let them see the knife on purpose. It wasn't a mistake. It was a message. While the Concord debated ethics and containment, Earth had studied them in return. Quietly, precisely, patiently. And now, even suggestion of human infiltration triggered full system lockdowns. Worse still, a second leak appeared on the Concord's protected netroot archives. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't even a warning. It was the story, a plain text document. No metadata, no signature, written in perfect Concord standard. The file was called One Man, One Knife. It told the fictional account of a lone human operative who dismantled an entire alien battalion using only terrain, instinct, and a blade forged from debris. Every move was described in technical detail. No errors, no exaggerations. The story ended with the human walking away silently as orbital forces searched the ruins. At first, the Concord considered it fear propaganda, until military analysts ran simulations based on the tactics described. Success rate, 87%. Kill ratio, 34-1. Logistical feasibility, confirmed. The file was deleted within minutes, but it had already spread. Copies popped up in hidden boards. Whispers followed. Some began referring to the mysterious author as the Knife Ghost. Others simply called it the Human Doctrine. Concord Command issued a system-wide purge order. All human-derived materials were to be quarantined, including literature, images, even conceptual training modules. It was too late. Across the black markets of fringe space, knives became a symbol of resistance. Crude blades were forged in imitation, some inscribed with the words, "It just works." Even among Concord citizens, admiration began to fester. quiet, careful admiration. Soldiers began training in silence, learning movement, studying anatomy, trying to replicate the calm precision of the Terran soldier. It didn't work. The knife wasn't in the hand. It was in the mind. Still, they tried. Then something happened that shattered all illusion of safety. A diplomatic station on the edge of neutral space received an unmarked crate. No message, no signal, just a box, composed of human-grade materials. Inside, one knife, standard military issue. Beside it, a folded piece of cloth bearing a Terran patch. And one line, "We don't need fleets." There was no return address, no witness, no trace. The Concord convened again. And this time there was no debate. The humans hadn't just shown them a weapon, they'd shown them a warning. This was restraint. This was mercy. A declaration not of war, but of capability. The new classification was created the next day. Humanity, autonomous strategic anomaly. Threat class, unknown. Status, non-provocable. Observation only. New orders were issued to all patrol vessels. In the event of human presence, do not engage. Do not approach. Retreat immediately. There was no fear of human ships invading Concord space. The fear was far simpler. That one day, someone would find a knife and realize a human had already been there. The Concord silence was no longer a choice. It was policy, doctrine, survival. Entire civilizations had restructured their defense postures not around technology, but around a single question. What if the humans are already here? They revised first contact protocols, rewrote tactical doctrines. Even AI war simulators began generating anomalous outcomes when variables labeled Terran were introduced. Success rates plummeted. Combat durations extended indefinitely. The AIs adjusted, factoring in chaos theory, emotional volatility, and most disturbingly, ingenuity. Humanity had redefined what it meant to be dangerous. But Earth stayed quiet. Satellites orbiting Sol were blinded by encrypted emissions. Observation drones mysteriously failed mid-transmission. And on the rare occasions when Concord probes returned, their databanks were corrupted, filled with innocuous Earth signals like laughter, fire crackling, and the metallic shing of a blade being sharpened. Then came the Shar incident. The Shar were a war-hardened race on the outer Concord rim, unaffiliated, proud, and convinced the panic over humans was exaggerated. They ignored the isolation order, sent a stealth corvette into Terran space. Just one, no broadcast, no authorization. It vanished. For 17 cycles, the Shar said nothing, denied everything. Then, a public message appeared on the galactic relay. To the Concord, the humans never fired a shot, and we will never speak of what we saw. The message was unsigned, but the voice was unmistakably Shar. They closed their borders 2 days later. Military withdrawal, zero trade, full planetary blackout. No one argued. The human anomaly had grown into something else, something unmeasurable. They had become the specter of preparedness. Not an enemy, not an empire, but a possibility. The most dangerous one, not because of their weapons, because they didn't need them. Concord analysts compiled a final doctrine paper, one circulated only among the highest security tiers. It summarized the Cade principle, named after the woman who first demonstrated the knife. It read, "When stripped of tools, they create. When stripped of allies, they endure. When stripped of safety, they sharpen. When stripped of hope, they advance." The galaxy wasn't afraid of Terran brutality. It was afraid of their calm, the quiet readiness, the lack of panic, the certainty that, if it came to survival, they wouldn't blink, wouldn't hesitate, wouldn't ask permission. They'd move, with a plan, a grip, and a sharpened edge. Then, just when belief was stabilizing, when the fear was crystallizing into distant myth, another message arrived. No encryption. Plain banned. One line. This is the last time we'll explain. Attached was a single image, an orbital view of Moon in Concord territory. From above, carved into its surface with unnatural precision, was a shape, a perfect outline of a knife. Massive, cut through stone and ice, over 30 kilometers long. Clean, unmistakable. No engine trail, no landing disturbance, just a mark. The Concorde collapsed into chaos. Debates erupted. Was it real? A projection? A warning? Or worse, a message of arrival? Within hours, hundreds of Concorde worlds issued full lockdowns. Naval fleets were repositioned. Training centers switched focus to counterinfiltration. Emergency broadcast channels looped a single message: avoid Terran provocation. But the humans never followed up. They never claimed the act, never offered proof. They didn't need to, because deep inside every sentient commander, every analyst, every security chief, the same realization took root. They weren't warning us. They were reminding us. Reminding them of what the Concorde had tried to forget, that they once looked down on Earth, that they laughed at primitive weapons, that they mocked the knife, and now they locked their doors against it. On the planet Seth, a young trainee once asked her mentor why the humans were feared so deeply. The mentor said, because the rest of us look for answers. The humans become them. She didn't understand. Not until years later, when a data drop surfaced from an unregistered relay near the galactic core. A Terran philosophy file, ancient pre-spaceflight. The file was corrupted, barely readable. But one line remained intact. Do not mistake our kindness for weakness. We've simply been sharpening longer than you. That quote became legend. Not sanctioned, not official, but remembered because it didn't threaten. It didn't boast. It simply confirmed the truth. Humanity didn't need war. They only needed a reason. And if that reason ever came, the galaxy wouldn't hear engines, wouldn't see fleets, wouldn't detect energy spikes. They'd see the mark, and something moving in the dark, something walking, quietly, with a knife,